to Wake the Bear Radio with your host, Brandon Johnson, Chris Hurst, and Ron Powers. All right.
Time to wake up a mad world.
It's a mad, mad world. Yeah, we're going to start off with a good old classic. And tell me if this is not today. Exactly.
Depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Yes, you've got to get mad.
Got to get mad.
Yes. You know, that is an old movie, and yet there's so many things that are so prevalent today. I mean, the violence, the storekeepers keeping a gun underneath their desk, and the inflation, the Russians, it's gone mad, and people do want to retreat. They say, leave us alone. Let us have our TV. With our steel-belted radios and all those advertisements. And what do people do today? They binge. Hey, let's binge this Netflix show. Let's binge this and binge that. And let's just pull away. Let's not really pay attention to what's going on out there. Let's retreat. I mean, I see so many parallels. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's the Neil T. Postman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. Yes. We are forgetting what's important and amusing ourselves to death. And it's time to wake people up. It's time to wake California up. It's time to wake this nation up. It's time to wake up to what is really going on, that there is a decay of the West going on right before our eyes, a destruction of our culture right before our eyes. And most people are oblivious to it, or they just want to stick their heads in the sand, pretend like it's not happening, and not do their part, not get out, not make friends on this, and with their neighbors, and try to say, how do we change the culture that's going on in our schools and our local high school and the crap they're teaching our kids and the stuff people are ingesting. Instead, we just go right along and ingest our own, and we do nothing about it. And I think that's why we started Wake the Bear Radio, is we said, hey, I don't want it to be asked by my grandkids while communism was taking over the United States, what did you do? And I have to tell them I did nothing. I just sat and did nothing and watched it happen. So that's why I'm here.
Wow. That's so good, Brandon, because, we at Wake the Bear, we do have a strong, but God, we're expecting God to break in, but it's a perspective that's coupled with that patriots, like you would say, that patriots are becoming Christians, Christians are becoming patriots, and those who love this country are standing up, and they're not going to take it anymore. As that movie, I think that's from Network, isn't it?
Yeah, Network.
That the lead on that would say, and although we might be hoping that conservative leaders and maybe even primarily MAGA followers have a plan, we know that this nation, although it must be reformed completely, it's not going to happen with a near-death experience. And, last week I reflected about, we kind of ended on some bad news. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we didn't infuse soon enough the hope. And I think part of it was because we actually saw an acceleration last week of some really difficult things. But we got to remember, like this network, there are 4 a.m. talking points. There is still a Project Mockingbird media that the CIA implemented. And the news points are going to be bringing the lies and the fake news and the MK Ultra tactics and programming and the anti-family narrative, the anti-God narrative, the anti-conservative narrative. So we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's a spiritual issue. It's definitely a spiritual issue. And I found it really interesting. Even we'll talk about it later, but President Trump at the NRA speech, he did say that we're not to blame gun violence on guns. It's a social and spiritual issue. And, the president to say that, it's just like, wow, he recognizes it. Even he recognizes it, right? For those that are against Trump, I'm not surprised that he recognizes it at all, because I believe he is on that line and on that understanding. But it's a spiritual issue. And you definitely see a Romans 1 playing out where God gives people over to their own foolishness. It says those that did not find it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to their desires and they became fools. And the stuff we are seeing is just pure foolishness. I don't know. That's what
foolishness. It is a mad world. It's really, like you said, it's a spiritual issue. I was encouraged, and I did say I was going to share this, but there's a movie that came out this week called Nefarious, which is actually a movie about a man that's on death row who's been demonized, and a liberal guy comes to him and tries to talk him, because he basically is pleading the fifth. That you can see it's on iamnefarious.com. It's actually a Christian horror movie, and the guy is sitting over the table having a conversation with this demon, and the guy's like, "You're talking to a demon." It's like, yeah, those don't really exist. He's, oh yeah, and then so the whole film is deconstructing this Western worldview that is anti-supernaturalistic, atheistic worldview that does not actually examine what really is going on, that we are fighting a demonic warfare. There is a warfare going on. It's spiritual, but it's war. It's like there are forces of darkness in the heavenlies that are trying to accomplish their purposes. And then there's the forces of light, of God's angels, the 2/3 of the host, the heavenly host, who are battling for the hearts and souls of mankind. And Satan hates us. So he wants to hurt, and he hates God. And that's why he's trying to take out as many of us as possible. So that's the battle we're in. That's why it's a mad world. But, there's a ton of stuff out there. I think you were mentioning, Ron, just the violence in the streets, and there's just the clear mental illnesses that are seem to be thriving around.
Yeah. Yesterday I went on Twitter, and I don't normally go on Twitter unless there's a link to someone, a specific post. And I decided to visit Twitterland, and it was just like, oh my gosh, I was depressed. It was like, oh, this is like Jerry Springer on steroids. Just one thing after another. Chicago, it's like no one even knows why these people are protesting, but there's hundreds of youth that are just running down the streets, jumping on buses, crushing cars, overrunning Walmarts and just food marts at gas stations. And it's just, and they're cleaning the place out. Literally, it's cleaned out and everything's destroyed. It's like, what are you doing to your own neighborhood? I wouldn't be surprised if some of these stores say, heck, I'm never coming back to this area. And then they're going to have to travel outside. But I had some hard reactions to it. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a bummer. My blood was boiling. I wanted justice. And maybe I should be more compassionate. I don't know. But I just was just like, start role playing in my mind. What would I do? I saw that old video. You said it's a year old. We were talking a little earlier, where a trans lady, a guy who dressed up as a gal, I guess, goes into this like gas station food mart with an axe. And then he's walking around, and then he starts talking to this other dude. And next thing you know, he swings that axe and knocks this guy in the head, and then knocks another guy, and just casually walks out. And it's all caught on film. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what would I do? Would I just sit there? Would I jump the guy? And you start playing these crazy things, and it's just one thing after another. I was just really taken back, Yeah.
And I think that's good thank you for saying that, Ron, because we need to watch our hearts right now, and we need to watch what we watch, because we are being programmed. What is put in front of us, especially on Twitter, which is really the Wild West of the social media platforms. It is by design meant to evoke some emotions in you. And right now, there are going to be some rapid fire news, I think, because we are at a precipice. I think that the black hats know it, and I think the white hats know it, and the gray hats, and anybody with a hat on knows that something has got to give very quickly. The patriots, they are desperate to get this nation awake. It's one of the reasons we do Wake the Bear. And it's as though this nation has been under a spell. And they pursue entertainment. They sit on the couch. They have another Twinkie. They have the remote, the Netflix, the light beer. They smoke another joint. They check out, more naps, more fast food, more Amazon surfing. I mean, you deserve a break today. Have it your way. Let the government take care of you. This whole woke agenda, your flatulence is causing global warming, for heaven's sakes. Own nothing and eat bugs. All this is stuck in front of our face, especially the last month. But I think this acceleration is there because the patriots know we are in go time, and it's an important time that a radical awakening must happen. And even with a radical awakening, there's going to be an uphill battle against all odds. So this is a rude awakening.
Yeah, I would say also that a lot of the violence you're seeing right now, if you think about it, going back to the 16-year plan, part of the later stages of the 16-year plan was to actually invoke some sort of martial law under the black hat control, some sort of lockdown. It's meant to push along the narrative, the gun control narrative. We'll see all the violence. We need to take people's guns. See all the violence. We need to bring in the military. We need to shut everything down. We need to control everything. And I think, especially the whole racism portion of it, trying to get these youths and who tend to be groups of black kids on the streets to try to get us to hate again. And I'm just saying right now, I will not hate. And it is not about race. What is this push to try to make us racist again? We are not a racist country. We haven't been a racist country for a long time. We are good people who have embraced Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech that there would be a time when kids would not be seen by the color of their skin, but they would be seen by the content of their character. And that is what we believe. That's the biblical position. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King preached that. The types of protests that we see today that are racially motivated, even the one that's going on with the guns and this guy trying to pretend like he's a 1960s black preacher, it's all trying to pull on the strings of our hearts to try to get us to believe something bad about our country and about who we are generally as a people. And I'm not going to believe it. I believe that this country has grown a lot. I think we're not perfect, but we have a lot of areas that we still need to change and grow. But I don't think we're as racist as the media wants to pretend we are, and the media wants us to hate each other. And who's the prince of the power of the airwaves? Satan. So that I believe that there's a diabolical plot to actually get us to hate each other, and I just will not. I mean, I befriended a young man the other day at my local club. One of the only black kids that came in there. I'm like, dude, what's your name? How are you? I'm so glad you're here. I got his number. We're going to become friends. Like, he's a good young guy. And then I ended up praying with him. I'm like, hey, you're a believer too? Dude, let's pray. And I prayed for him. Like, here's a middle-aged white guy like me grabbing a young black guy, and we're praying with each other in the streets of our club, in the parking lot. It was just cool. I'm just like, you know what? There's a lot of good people out there.
Yeah,
absolutely. And, you have to choose sometimes to listen to the positive, because, I'll admit I watched a lot of violence last night, and mostly the store raids and stuff. And the majority of them were blacks.
Walmart.
And Walmart. But, there was one scene where a lady walks through one that's already been devastated, supermarket or something, and she's a black lady, and she's just like, I refuse to be like these animals that did this. I will pay. And there's food everywhere. And she's like, how am I going to feed my babies? And she was crying, and she's like, I can't believe these people are doing this. And she says, I will not be that. I will pay for my food. And, and it was interesting because the vegetable section was completely untouched, but everything else. Yeah. Things that are good for you, but all the processed
the Cocoa Puffs were all taken.
All taken, yeah. And it just, it was interesting. But so I saw that lady, and I remember Beverly, a lady named Beverly or something, even with the Black Lives Matter, she was pouring tar on top of it, saying, it's only Jesus, you know, and these are communists. And, you know, she saw through it. And, you know, and then back when the summer, mostly peaceful protests were, you know, all these people were getting beat up, like young teenage white girls, you know, but yet there were some black people that would stand in between and protect them, or jump on those guys that would be beating these girls up, you know, and they would say, how dare you do that? And they were, you know, blacks as well. So, you know, you can't stereotype anybody. There's more good ones much more good ones than there are bad ones. But the bad ones get all the publicity because that's what the Mockingbird media wants to do. They want to focus in. They don't even have to say it. They just keep showing it and let people, and then they point the finger and say, oh, you must be racist. And so it's like, well, you showed me nothing but this. You're creating a stereotype when I know that's not the case at all. And so
it's like the stereotypes with the skinheads that are white males. I mean, anybody can try and create hatred with a race. So we know that's a focused agenda to defame racial, you know, make, oh, if one is like this, then all are like that. So I love what you said, Brandon. We're not gonna fall for that. Nope. The other thing, because we are, I think, going to hear an acceleration. That's so good, Ron, that you said we have to decide what we're going to listen to. We want to figure out what's going on, but we don't want to fill our soul with things that are going to traumatize us. And we're going around with PTSD. We need to also access what God is saying for each of us on our own. We need to be tuned to the Holy Spirit. And I know a lot of people think they know what's going on. We have a 5D chess game that's way above our ability to really know what's ahead for us. The intentional misinformation is so confusing. I don't know if you know what's going on, but, you know, I might think I know what's going on, and then I hear something else. It's like, I've got no idea, but I think this might be true. And so it's confusing. We don't know who the good guys are sometimes, who the bad guys are. We don't really know the plan, and we all have ideas, but we've got to hear from God for ourselves to know our peace, and then to walk in that peace. We know we're supposed to do Wake the Bear Radio, and that we're trying to wake up people who are fence dwellers to take a stand one way or another. Even if they go to the other side, at least they made a decision rather than going, oh, someone else is going to take care of it.
Yep.
Well, I think
it's the fence.
I think it's one of the things too, Ron, you point out, I think you too, Chris, you know, our sources of media, you know, even though we are waking people up, they should be people that are mostly positive, who have a worldview that understands that God is in control ultimately at the end, that Christ will return. And so I like guys like, and we know, I especially like the guys on X22 Report. I mean, he is just absolutely confident that Trump and the Patriots are in control. The people are waking up. He says it over and over and over again on every broadcast. And I would have to agree. I think we were saying, hey, wake the bear. But I think if you actually polled people with an honest poll, the bear is being awoken, that we are already seeing it happen. People are waking up. You know, it's not going to take, I think too, we've been in, like you said, Chris, I think we've been in a psyop. It's been mind control, witchcraft. I was thinking even today, I was driving down the road and I'm looking out the window saying, I just want to yell out the window. You guys do realize that our elections were stolen. Did everybody understand that? Because we were told we weren't allowed to talk about that. We were told, we were silenced and shamed into silence to say the election, oh, you know, election wasn't stolen. That's just misinformation. Well, no, that was a very concentrated effort to lie to the American people and to get anybody who had a contrary narrative to shut up. Well, we need to quit shutting up. We need to start waking. Like, you need to roll your window down and say, hey, you do know the election was stolen, right? You do know the communists are trying to take over our country. I mean, those are the types of conversations we need to have with perfect strangers, even if they think we're crazy, because you know what? Half of them are going to go, yeah, I'm beginning to believe that now too, you know? You're right.
Plant some seeds.
The emperor is fully naked. This guy that's in the White House, he did not get in there by votes. There's no way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the interesting thing too is, you know, a good example of understanding what's right. You know, like Chris had said, we may not know exactly what's going on, but there are some things to minimize the wrong information. One of them is actually using logic. And one of the stories was the Pentagon leak that we were just starting to talk about. So, that came out, 21-year-old guy, Jack, who goes, he has access to all this incredible intelligence way above his pay grade. I mean, 21, how many years can you actually be in the military, right? And yet he had physical evidence. It wasn't like, it was like photographs of paperwork, things like that. And so when that came out, some people, myself included, were like, wow, there's a truth teller that's possibly, trying to expose, kind of like a Snowden sort of thing or something like that. But now, using a little bit of logic, people are scratching their head going, how did he get access to something like that? How could he have pulled that off? And it's interesting that he gets caught so quick. Well, actually, it wasn't even that quick. For months, it was on his gaming site. So apparently the story goes, as a 21-year-old guy, I guess he wants to show off and say, hey, look at all this, top secret stuff. And so he spends a couple months sharing it. And then all of a sudden, boom, it gets made known. They go in, they arrest him. Well, when does the DOJ ever arrest anybody? At least, people that have laptops full of almost 500 political crimes, almost 200 sexual crimes, Hunter Biden, right? I mean, thing after thing like that. They just look the other way, the 33,000 emails, top secret emails compromised with Hillary Clinton. And so all of a sudden this guy gets it. So it's like, okay, how did this guy have access? How did he get arrested so quick? And is there something behind it? And so people are starting to look a little deeper, and it's starting to look like maybe this is a way to promote this new legislation.
Yes.
The Restrict Act.
Yep.
Yes.
The Restrict Act. And that was originally supposed to go after, like, let's shut down TikTok. TikTok's not mentioned at all. It's actually, let's find a way that we can go in on people and spy on them and restrict them, So they'll use something like this, national security. Had we been able to monitor online this gaming site, we would have been able to, catch it sooner. And that's kind of the narrative going out, and it's going to prep people. People are going to be like, yeah, by all means, do it, national security.
Yeah. And I mean, it reminded me of Stone's arrest where he had all those FBI and CNN was there beforehand because they had all of his arrests. This young man who was Jack Teixeira, is that how you say it? Teixeira?
Teixeira I've heard it said that way as well.
Well, they had obviously a drone up in the air and they were filming it, and there were what looked like military people. So they must have been DOD, or somehow they didn't look like police officers, and they didn't have FBI written on them. They looked more like they were in camo. And so it was quite a big deal. Maybe it was because he was an Air National Guardsman and he was on base. That might have been why it was in military gear. But I agree. Kash Patel was saying there's no way that the official narrative can be true, because as an Air National Guardsman, he would not be able to single-handedly have pulled off access to this classified information. And so I'm wondering if he kind of got fed the information, something is happening that we don't know about. And then there's this whole lack of examining what he actually released. What did Jack expose? Did any of you see what some of the things that he put out there were?
I mean, you want to go, Brandon?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, it's clearly designed to be an intimidation campaign. I mean, the way you bringing a fully armed AR-15s, multiple pistols, guys, full in, coming to come arrest a young kid in his shorts. I mean, the message it sends, and I think this is the message we've been seeing over and over again, is don't you mess with us. Don't you start sharing alternative narratives, or this is what could happen to you. And it's the same thing as January 6th, how they've targeted all these patriots, whether they did crimes or not. I mean, if someone did a crime, they deserve to. That's part of that's part of protesting. If you commit a crime, you do the time, period. I don't care, even if you meant to do it for the right reasons. But but the point is that what they're trying to say is, that we do not, you digital warriors out there, stop passing around information that's contrary to the narrative that we want the people to believe, or we will come after you with a full regalia of weapons. And I mean, this is, and then of course, the other plot that you said, Ron, it's this, this new law that they're trying to pass that rhinos and Republicans have actually signed off on. And that's this Restrict Act for national, this is basically to eliminate your Fourth Amendment, which, the Fourth Amendment is the right for people to have secure persons on their houses, their papers, their effects from unreasonable search and seizures. And so they're trying to get it for national security reasons. It's like Patriot Act on steroids. They can basically we have the right now to surveil every communication you make, because you might be a domestic terrorist. You might be one of this 21-year-old guy who's putting out information. And, and the other thing that sticks out to me is also that the comparison that was made, I think recently by, and we know, on Vindman actually exposed documents, high level, top secret documents. And he was called you remember what he was called?
A hero?
He was called a hero. And because
Patriot,
it was against Trump. He was a patriot hero, and he was a whistleblower. So how is this any different? So if you are giving information out that is against a specific person like Trump, you're a whistleblower. If you're giving information out that makes your own government look bad, then you're a traitor. And there's two different systems of justice here. And I don't know if you noticed this, there's a theme going on here over and over again. First, they attack Trump for having documents that he shouldn't have, even though he had every right to have them at Mar-a-Lago. Then it comes out that Biden had all these other documents, did it worse. I just think that we're going to see like the left version of justice and the right version of justice over and over again. And so it's just really in your face.
It's exactly according to plan. That's what Trump wants. He wanted to get arrested, might even get convicted, to just show, well, one, to get rid of any excuses like we've never done this before. Do it to him, you could do it to everyone else. But, some of the content, as Chris was asking earlier, as far as what was on that, one of the things, the content was that we had U.S. military on the ground in this war in Ukraine. And that was done by no one else but Biden. And so, usually they'll give a president 48 hours. And I understand that the logic behind that, someone strikes, you can't wait and gather Congress and then say, hey, we'll vote on it. It's like, you got to act right now. So they give you 48 hours. Well, that was a long time ago. And so he basically has declared war unconstitutionally, and nobody's doing anything about it. It's like nobody has the guts to just stand up and say, hey, wait, this isn't according to our Constitution. So it's a little disappointing, but that right there is a big red flag, just saying, hey, look, we're doing it wrong. The other one was the numbers, how many people really died in both on the Ukraine side and the Russian side.
It's like 4-1, right?
7-1.
7-1. Yeah.
7 Ukrainians per Russian.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And they were originally all along, we're winning, right? We're winning.
Yeah. And then the last one that really stuck out in my mind was that they're going to not have the support. I think we covered it last week. They're not going to have the correct support by the time May 23rd comes along. And I think it's air defense. And so he's basically saying that so what's going to happen? They're either going to have to do something drastic between now and then, or they'll have talks. And I don't think they're talking. And so that makes me a little nervous. So anyway, yes.
And it should. And the fact that it got out tells us that the mainstream media and the deep state, they want this information. So they're going to tilt it for their advantage. So my guess is they're going to say, look, we need more money now because the Russians appear to be winning. And I don't know, they're not going to be able to tilt that Biden has done an active war without getting permission from the Congress, unless they decide they allow the whole procedure of impeachment to go. to go forward. So that might further their agenda. It'll also eat up a bunch of time. It'll be used for distractions. There'll be a whole show going on with an impeachment of Biden if they use this for that, and it will just delay things. So I think they're trying to figure out, they may not even have to use the 25th Amendment if they impeach him, and they may just suck down the clock so that they get their people ready so that they can then move in someone without losing too much face.
Wow. Yeah. It's crazy stuff. So anything else? I know, there's, you're not safe anywhere, even in places like San Francisco. They had Bob Lee, who created a Cash App.
Yep.
Very wealthy person, lived in what they call the good parts of San Francisco. And he was stabbed to death. But again, do a little bit more investigation, and it finds out that there were ties between him and the murderer. And it wasn't just a random thing. Even the conservatives were saying, look, it's the city. It's just so bad. And it is in a lot of ways. But this one was a personal vengeance. And I think they also shared dating a person that they had dated or something like that as well. But the sad thing about that story is that I had heard that after he got stabbed and he's bleeding, he's walking around asking for help, and people refuse to help. And that is just, and it reminds me of a story of Sodom and Gomorrah out of the book of Jasher, which is an extra book. It's referenced in scripture twice, where this town would have travelers come through, and it was out in nowhere. So it's like a lot of days between that town and the next town. And so you would have to have your food and your water stored up to make that trip. Otherwise you would die. Wow. And so people would come in and they would shower the person with gifts. They would feel real welcome. They would exhaust their food supply. And then when they're ready to leave, nobody in the town was allowed to give them water or food to leave. And they were stuck there, and they literally starved to death. And then the people took all that person's belongings and divvied it up.
Oh my goodness.
It was a horrible thing. I remember reading that years ago going, my gosh, that was one of the many sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, that they would do this to travelers. But, here's a guy that's bleeding and he's asking for help. Just like back then they're asking, hey, I need food, and nobody would give any assistance. They wouldn't do anything, and they'd let you die. And that's what he did. He wound up dying.
It's cartel-like activity, isn't it? Or the one on the streets. It's just, how can anyone not be compassionate with someone who's calling for help? Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we're seeing the decay. I mean, we're seeing a culture that's turned its back on God and gone upon God's principles. And I think, the violence, you see that happening. You see that with the stabbing. You're seeing even this thing that happened with Dalai Lama, right? He's on video kissing a boy on the mouth, a young boy in the mouth.
Yeah, that is just crazy.
And then tells him to suck his tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Of course, the mainstream media's narrative is, he's just playful. And in that country, all that means is it's a playful act with children. And I thought, he's a transcendental meditation. His brother came to America. They set up a whole cult in America, and don't be deceived about his religious abilities. He is a Satanist of the deepest level, and he's part of trafficking and pedophilia, and it will come out.
It will, definitely. Anyway, I just want to show that. So, yeah, and I know Q had said that years ago too, that in the places you think you're safest is where they are, and sometimes it's in the churches, the schools, the Boy Scouts, the confessionals, the social working, the foster care system, all that stuff. And that's where you got to keep your eyes open, But, who would have thought, right? The Dalai Lama But yet there it is. Nothing surprises me.
Oh yeah.
So
well, and then okay, so now some other crazy stuff going on in the world right now. There's all kinds of military drills going on down in the South Pacific, and first you got the South China Sea with that we talked about last week with Taiwan, but you've also had military drills going on in the South Pacific, Japan, Philippines, and South Korea. What do you get of that? And what are we to think about that?
Distraction.
Well, North Korea, I mean, they did launch a missile. So there's some saber rattling going on. Obviously, you got China that's been doing full on drills. I don't even know if you could call them drills. They're definitely intimidation. They're practicing to take over Taiwan. And the South Pacific, there's got to be a banding together of some alliances. So against China and North Korea, we have Japan, the Philippines, and South Korea, basically, and us. So I think that's what's going on is we're trying to renew our alliances and say, hey, we need to kind of do our own form of saber rattling and be ready to work together. But it could also be a distraction. I mean, it's so hard to know whether there's, I believe there's a real Taiwan-China threat. I think Japan is very, very nervous. They had an explosion, didn't they?
Yeah, the prime minister, I saw a video. It was incredible. His security, someone throws a smoke bomb right by the prime minister, and this guy kicks it with his foot, deflects it with his briefcase, and then just pushes the prime minister out of the way, and then it goes off. And it was just like, wow, some real quick thinking on this security guard. It was, I think I saw it on Truth Social. They said they don't pay this guy enough. He did his job real well. But yeah, I mean that was definitely a threat.
Yeah.
And we know that Japan's had their share. I mean, their former prime minister got shot down.
Yes, he did with
And,
a
they don't
3D
allow
gun or 4D printer, 3D printer gun.
Yeah, it just shows that even if you outlaw it, if there's a will, there's a way. And that person did, do that. So
crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely crazy stuff.
Well, and I think it's part of that reality that we live in a very tenuous environment right now, that World War III is threatened in Ukraine and Russia and Taiwan and China. And now these military drills are amping up our awareness that we're doing these drills and we're all part of it. So it is a crazy time. It's really quite a crazy time.
Speaking of Japan and the gun grabbing that went there, and the guy had to do a 3D, someone else is a gun grabber in our own backyard, and we haven't seen much of her lately. Dianne Feinstein.
Dianne Feinstein, yeah.
Yeah.
Dianne Feinstein, 89 and won't resign.
That's exactly. You're a poet and don't even know it. Yeah, even the Dems want to get her moved out. They want her to resign because they have some people to appoint, and she's not around. She hasn't been around for a month and a half, I think it is. And she had shingles, which for those that don't know, that's get a later aged chickenpox, and it could be pretty painful. And so if she has that, I hope she gets over it. I don't wish anything ill will on anybody, but at the same time, I hope she stays home and doesn't resign.
Yeah, this whole balance in the Senate is very interesting because she has missed 60 votes due to her illness. And we know there's just one vote difference because Fetterman has been out. So it's just an interesting dynamic. And so the Dems are the ones who are saying, get out, get out. She says no, but she is considering giving someone her Senate Judiciary Committee position as a temporary replacement. I mean, she is kind of the ever ready bunny. She's like, at what point are you going to step down? But she is full on. No, I'm coming back. I I don't want to give up my position. And then Fetterman came back this week. Did you see that in the news?
I
So
did.
that was amazing. I think we've got a picture of it. And I mean, it was not a very elegant picture. He wasn't walking very well, and he was certainly not dressed very well. It just was a strange re-entry that he did. He was wearing his gym shorts and his hoodie and his tennis shoes, and he really didn't give an interview. He just kind of touched his heart like he was happy to be back, and his gait didn't look stable. It just there was on Twitter, of course, Twitterland is the Wild West. It said proof that cognition, speech comprehension, emotional balance, and even showing up for work are no longer necessary for a career in democratic politics.
Oh my God.
Honestly, I can't believe that he's going to be able to do 6 more years. I don't know why the Dems aren't screaming to replace him like they are Feinstein, and I think they could pretty much bring in, maybe he hasn't served enough time yet and it might go back to a vote. But Fetterman, he has misled the people of Pennsylvania that he would be able to do his job. He did not disclose his medical issues very well, and I think that we're going to see somebody else step in before the end of his 6 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Is his wife and kids still out of the country? They just got up and left while he was in the hospital. So I don't know.
I think they're probably back, but I haven't read anything about that.
Yeah. Well,
and then we've got Mitch McConnell. He may resign. I know he's the Senate minority leader, so that's going to start a big GOP kind of brouhaha. That the Rhino John Cornyn, he wants to take his place. Mitch McConnell, he's 81 years old. He fell and he's been having trouble recovering from his fall. And so there's some real old people that have been in career politics way too long. We need people who are farmers and business people to get in, do their 4 to 6 years, get out, and let somebody else come in instead of these career politicians.
These old geezers. Yeah, Billy Joel's song "Only the Good Die Young." That is getting more true and true every day.
Oh my gosh.
I look at what's around in Congress. Especially. I mean, it's the career politician. They're all getting old. Nancy, an old drunk, and Biden falls upstairs, and it's just
they're not sending us their best. The Democratic Party is not sending us their best.
Well, they keep staying. That they might have been their best, decades ago, a generation or two ago, and now they're still in. It's interesting, this pattern.
I think it's evidence that there are people behind them that are propping them up. They need them in positionally. Who was it last week that was voting on a bill, the bill, and didn't even realize that his name was on it?
Oh, yeah, that was Lindsey Graham.
Yes, Lindsey Rhino Graham. Yes.
Yeah.
There's video of him talking to the Ukrainians in 2014 about how they're going to back them when Putin, when things go down with Putin. They basically orchestrated this whole entire thing.
Yeah, he's not a good man.
No.
Yeah.
He talks a big game, but he's not. He's all talk.
Yeah. And then some other crazy stuff. Did you hear about Disney? They're going to have an LGBTQ plus themed night event. So it'll have Disney characters and Lord knows what else. It's a night event. So it's obviously not for children, hopefully, unless they might be the victims of the crime, because I'm sorry if you like Disney a lot, but the truth is that they have trafficked children and they've been involved in pedophilia for a long time. We know that Walt Disney is a a high-level Mason. That the 33 Club that's there in California's Disneyland is for his 33rd degree Masonic position, and he is not what he seemed to be. He was a raging alcoholic at work, and he had a high temper at home. And so a lot of the misconceptions about Disney and Disneyland, they have an underground tunnel system that's extensive there. So if it's not hard to find the truth about Disneyland. So to hear that they're doing an LGBTQ plus, and we know the plus stands for pedophilia. So we know the Mouseketeers, that there have been different people. Annette Fulagella, was that? We used to call her Annette Fulagella. I don't know what her real name is. We called her the wrong name for so long. But Britney Spears was part of that Disney Club too, wasn't she at one time?
Yeah.
And some others that have just really, they've gone through the MK Ultra mind control programming that the CIA brought in. And we know Walt Disney himself worked with the CIA as part of bringing in that programming.
Yeah, well, I have some distant family friends who had a kid that was going through the internship program with Disney, and it really corrupted him. It was not a good thing. It was not a good stage in his life. And they're open to everything except Jesus. They're open to everything, every type of lifestyle except the gospel and except the truth. And there's a lot of decay that's happening under that organization. So the other one that is happening is they're making LGBT Legos. Did you hear about that one? LGBT Lego sets coming out for Pride Month.
Goodness. Don't tell me I have to get rid of Legos. Oh, my grandkids are going to be very unhappy about that.
Talking about targeting kids, I think back, when Prop 8 was going through California legislature, and I'm obviously not a Mormon, but the Mormon Church and other organizations were like, hey, this is targeting your kids. The Prop 8, gay marriage is going to ultimately, it's the whole agenda is to target your children. And everybody said, oh, no, we just want to be left alone. We're not here to target your children. No, they were targeting your children. This was a very sophisticated plan to target kids as young as kindergarten or younger, to get them to believe that these types of lifestyles should be acceptable and normal, and to normalize this. And it's interesting because this one here on the end right here, this is trans, right? So, and I hate to say this. I mean, I get banned from Twitter for saying this, but having a trans direction in your life, that's actually still considered a mental illness in the DSM. I think it's 6 or 5 or 6, and it hasn't been taken out. And the only reason that homosexuality was actually taken out of the DSM as a mental illness was because the gay agenda pressured, and they shut down the APA, the American Psychological Association's meetings, unless they would take it out. So they, under pressure, took it out, and now they're pressuring them to accept this lifestyle, this trans lifestyle, rejecting science completely. The trust the science people have completely went off the rocker, and they're not trusting the science. And it's amazing how much pushback we're actually seeing in our culture. Praise God, people are waking up. I mean, Gaines, as a swimmer, saying, listen, I don't want to be forced to swim against a biological man. I don't think any woman in any sport should be asked of that. And then she went to San Francisco to talk about it, and they rallied up a big gang, attacked her, and literally a man assaulted her. A man pretending to be a woman assaulted a woman who was just standing up for women's rights. And that's just so bizarre that we're in that place in our culture today.
Yeah, absolutely. But, there is a pushback. I mean, Bud Light is a great example. Everyone knows about Dylan, and Dylan has been on the can of, Bud Light. And I think it's a 365 days being a girl. And as a result, Budweiser has lost $6.6 billion so far. And it's only been several weeks since this happened, since they put them on that can. And so they're done. They're like, you know what? And then, you see the pack peddling, all the upper echelon of Budweiser saying, hey, we weren't aware of this, we didn't know. And, that whole thing. It's like, well, you know what? The fact that it happened, that's all that matters. And they're under you. And then, they try to do a new commercial. Steamrolling, right? Hopefully those purchased.
I love this video clip. This is what's going on to Bud Light right now.
Downhill like a snowball headed for hell. With no kind of chance for the flag.
Yeah.
Road roller crushing the cans of Bud Light, man. That is quite a statement. And we know Anheuser-Busch CEO Brendan Whitworth, he has an interesting career background. Did either of you see that?
No.
Yeah, I heard that on X22. I think it was. Yeah,
he started out in the Marines. Then he was recruited to the CIA. This is the CEO of Anheuser-Busch that, Bud Light is their company. And then he got an MBA at Harvard, and then he became CEO of Anheuser-Busch. And so I think there might be some alternative motives behind this advertisement other than making money. I think their narrative and trying to promote the transgender advertisement. I mean, Nike's tried to do it. Even Jack Daniels has released a transgender individual promoting their alcohol, which to me, I think, don't you know your audience or your people? It's so strange to me.
Well, Jack Daniels is hard liquor. So who knows? You drink a bottle of that and you might think you're the opposite as well. I don't know. But yes, it is crazy. So on to other things. What about Joe Biden? Joe,
well,
Joe Biden, I know he went to Ireland.
Well, you said also that I think it was that they put out another beer commercial with a trans person with an American flag trying to get back some of their.
Yeah.
That was Babylon Bee. Babylon Bee had a funny, they're just tongue in cheek. And I love the way that they do satire. And so basically Babylon Bee said that Anheuser-Busch it says Bud Light smooths things over with a new ad featuring drag queen waving an American flag. And they are totally tongue in cheek, but it's as though that would make everything all better for people who might have been offended at the trans advertisement.
Yeah, well, I just want to say
in reality, they did just put out a new Americana type of commercial, an old one with, Clydesdale horse and middle America. And people are like, we're not buying that. You're not going to just change our minds from one commercial. We're not stupid. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was interesting that Donald Trump Jr. came out and said, hey, traditionally Anheuser-Busch has been a very conservative company. We really probably should back off on attacking them now. They made a mistake, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, most people are saying, no, that is absolutely wrong. This is the most successful boycott in American history. To boycott and why stop now? And it's like, well, we don't want them to go under. They're an American company. I'm like, no, there are some companies that need to go bankrupt to get the message, and people need to be fired. So we'll stop the boycott if, number one, there's a formal apology that the person who made the decisions is fired. I want people fired, okay, for making bad. If you're in a job and you make a bad decision, you really screw things up, you should lose your job. And that's what needs to happen, not just like, oh, let's forgive them. They really attacked America with this philosophy, and it's coming from all different directions. It's a concerted effort, multifaceted strategy to try to change Americans' minds about these things, and it is not going to happen because there's just too many righteous, good people in this country.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Yep. Well, it has been a crazy, crazy, crazy week. All right. I mean, did you see that Joe Biden, he went to Ireland?
Oh, and,
and he took Hunter with him on Air Force One again.
Interesting.
I don't know why he took Hunter with him, but he took a selfie with Jerry Adams. And if you know Jerry Adams, he's best known for being a IRA radical terrorist who sets bombs, under British cars and tries to blow up those people in London. So it just was a very strange selfie. So it felt like it was by part of this whole demise and by intentional, that they're trying to make Joe Biden look bad, because he did look pretty bad.
Well, that, and probably it's almost like trying to resurrect all the divisions. I mean, this is what communism does, is they try to create as many divisions between the people, get the people fighting each other so the government can be the answer. And, I don't know if that's part of the strategy here, but it feels like it could be.
Yeah, that's it. Well, last week we had a lot of hard things, and we didn't have as much message of hope, but I think Trump had he was keynote at the NRA convention in Indianapolis this week. And
they liked him a lot.
Good things. One thing I love about Trump is that since he started running for president, he has been lining out solutions. And if you go back since he announced his candidacy, you will see solutions in all his speeches. So
definitely.
That was good news.
That's leadership. I mean, that definitely is comforting to know that a lot of this can be turned around quickly.
Yes.
And so it's not like we're over the cliff past the point of return. There is hope. And each week, President Trump does lay out a clear plan. This is what I would do when I'm president. This war will stop in 24 hours. I believe him.
Yeah.
And so,
he says, no one's going after your gun. I'm stronger for the Second Amendment than any other president. And they say they won't take away your guns while they're trying to do it while they're throwing the jailhouse doors wide open. But he said, upon my inauguration, I'll direct the FDA. This was one of his solutions, to convene an outside panel to investigate whether transgender hormone treatment on ideologies has an increase of risk to cause severe depression, severe aggression, and even violence. And he called mass shooting a mental health problem. And so people were criticizing him for that. But in reality, what he was saying is, we need to look at this, because there's a strange, there's a trend with these transgender situations, and no one's even asking those questions. So that's not being prejudiced. That's just saying, hey, we need to have some studies, because this is very odd.
Well, yeah, I mean, your hormones are off kilter. You're on different drugs. Every mass killer that I know of in the last 100 years, it seems like, has been on an antidepressant. They have the whole list. You can just do a search, just search antidepressants, mass killing, and you'll see the full list. So you pump yourself full of, maybe if you're a female, you pump yourself full of testosterone. That's going to do it. There's probably trauma with a lot of these things that have happened to them. Could be rejection. Not a guarantee, but I do believe that most of them probably have some antidepressants going in them as well. So
we're not antidepressants, because there are people who need to have their dopamine levels increase, and that I think what you're trying to say is that they suffer from something that's causing extreme depression.
Yeah, mental illness and extreme depression. Yeah, if you're changing people's hormones and you're giving them antidepressants, and they're using drugs and alcohol, which is like that one woman that walked into like you were talking about before with the axe. I mean, that person that came out, she said, or he, it's a man.
It was a he. Let's not confuse that. A man dressed as a woman. If you get an outfit, it does not make you a woman.
Amen. He came in dressed as a woman, high on drugs and alcohol, and then assaulted people with an axe. So he was very, he said he doesn't even remember doing it, but he does remember a voice telling him to kill people. So that sounds like all the open doors were all open through all the drugs. And then the demonic force entered in, and that's what happens. So
That is it. So,
Well,
well,
there's a couple other.
we are seeing a lot of activity, aren't we? And we want to keep our levels of hope high, because we're seeing them to have that rude awakening. We are waking people up through these news pieces, the facts that are coming out. And so we just want to encourage you, stay in the Word, stay in prayer, stay with the right focus, and know that this isn't going to be the end of the story. This is just a purposeful waking up time.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you want to help wake people up, hit like on or subscribe. Tell one friend. Just go today and just after listening, just tell one friend, say, hey, you got to check this out. Getting the word out can greatly help. So yes, please do.
Yeah,
so,
like, subscribe, Monday night, 7:00. Tell your friends, come listen to us, come interact with us. And yeah, until next time, we bless you from Wake the Bear Radio. And we declare right now, Jesus is Lord. He's coming back soon. It's time to wake up, wake the church, wake up the people.
That's right. Amen.
Amen.